All right, this is going to be a little bit of a long walk with this video, but I hope you'll stick around because what I want to highlight here is not just normal Mandela effects, but an entire rewriting of the historical narrative of many of these subjects and the subsequent blending with alternate material into the current timeline in a way that makes it look like the seemingly new material was there all along. So what I want to start with here is this pretty well-known Mandela effect regarding Uncle Sam and his hat, particularly in regards to this specific poster, which was originated in World War II. Now, take a look at this and tell me which of these hats looks most correct in your opinion. Which one looks right, and which one looks perhaps a bit unfamiliar to you. Now you can see this image is reproduced all over the place. T-shirts, stickers, tattoos, various clip arts, and no one really seems to get the hat right, consistently anyway. Now only one of these versions is correct. So take a look at this. Even tattoos, some people are getting tattoos, and they should pay extra attention as to which is the correct color for Uncle Sam's hat. You can see Halloween outfits. Some of these might look right in your opinion, and some of these others might look very unfamiliar. And there you can see what they're modeling these characters after, with the pose, pointing the finger, the expression, and you can see a lot of this imagery goes back quite a ways. A lot of classic posters and artwork depicting Uncle Sam, and you can tell that it's pretty much modeled after this poster that many of us are familiar with. Now, one of these hats is a lot more common than the other and is actually correct, and the other is a little bit more obscure and not correct. And I would even say, for me personally, if I would see some of these hats, I wouldn't even know who they're supposed to be. If you're not familiar with the particular hat, you might look at the person wearing it and be like, well, what are you supposed to be? If you don't know that that's what Uncle Sam's hat actually looks like. Or if you, like me, have been familiar with a completely different version compared to the version that's there today. All right, well, here it is. This is the original poster, the World War II recruitment poster of Uncle Sam saying, "I want you for U.S. Army." Now, when I first saw this along with a whole bunch of other Mandela effects, I was like, that's not right. For me, he always had stripes on his hat. In this poster, this looks wildly unfamiliar. A bright white hat with this big white star on it. It doesn't look right to me. And many other people are also pointing this out as a Mandela effect for them as well. Now, I saw this image, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. Now, this older guy here doesn't seem to know that, well, Uncle Sam doesn't have a striped hat, and he's wearing one while he's doing the pose. Well, what's really interesting is who this guy actually is. This is Walter Botts. He was the original model for the original poster. Recreating the same pose, wearing the, quote-unquote same hat, standing in front of the iconic classic poster at the time. This was in 1971, and he's wearing the wrong hat. What is going on? Can't he see the poster, right beside him, over his shoulder? Doesn't he remember what hat was worn? Now, this photo is, a recognized archived photo. The details given for this photo here, Walter Botts with the famous Uncle Sam poster he posed for in 1971. Location, type, description. This is where the details get really interesting. Caption: Walter Botts during 1971 Atlanta visit. Famous poster poser dies in California August 11, 1972. Caption: striking his Uncle Sam pose in 1938, artist James Montgomery Flagg was drawing an American recruiting poster, and he asked Walter Botts, a musician, to pose as Uncle Sam. What do you want me to do with with your hands? asked Flagg. Why don't I point my finger like this and say, I want you, Botts suggested, cupping his lips as he pronounced you. No frown, said Flagg. The result was the familiar poster that invited young men into the Army during World War II, and for years afterwards, visiting Atlanta for the grand opening of Uncle Sam's Newsroom Restaurant and Lounge. Botts, now 71, struck the famous pose again Thursday. Staff photo Bill Grimes, August 6, 1971. So there you have it. He struck the original pose. Montgomery Flagg drew the poster, and history is made, right? And here, look at this article, news.va.gov, about Walter Botts. Let's read this one. Adds even more clarity and credence to this story. In 1938, Walter was chosen among several models to pose as Uncle Sam in the prominent I Want You World War II recruiting campaign posters for each military branch, reporting to sketching sessions for 3 days. This famous image was drawn by James Montgomery Flagg in a total of 5 settings. Walter originated the phrase, I want you, and the infamous finger-pointing pose while working with Mr. Flagg to depict Uncle Sam in these war campaigns. Walter was awarded commendation by Lyndon B. Johnson, President Lyndon B. Johnson, in 1969 for his part in posing as Uncle Sam during this time. Wow, he's got official presidential recognition for this pose, this slogan, this poster. What an honor. Until you look at this and wonder what is going on. Here we see the pose, the painting, the figure, July 6th, 1916, in Leslie's Illustrated Weekly newspaper. What? James Montgomery Flagg drew this painting already in 1916, and he already made it a recruitment poster. And guess what the slogan was? I want you for U.S. Army. Walter Botts had nothing to do with this pose, this slogan, or even the original image. Why are they giving him official presidential recognition for this? This is wild. This ties into my previous videos about these new narratives regarding well-known stories in history, where there seems to be this, I don't know how else to call this, an alternate timeline, a parallel timeline of some parallel version of the same event is now being blended together with today's version, and this is really strange. Just like Betsy Ross is now the co-creator of the American flag with Francis Hopkinson, and it turns out Betsy Ross never did create the flag. It's just a legend, a myth, no proof. So now this origination story of this poster has its own dual narrative, which is very, very strange. Now let's read a little bit more about it. This is now being merged together into a new version of the story. When asked to update the highly effective image for use in World War II, Flagg hired a Hoosier-born veteran who posed for Norman Rockwell. According to his widow's memoir, Walter Botts was chosen over other models for Flagg's Army poster because he had the longest arms and longest nose and bushiest eyebrows. Botts reportedly suggested the pointing gesture when the artist asked, Walt, what are you going to do with those long arms sitting there? Why does he need to ask? They're just recreating the same poster from World War I. So this suggests that the poster is being recreated, but Botts is also originating the gesture? This makes no sense. This is some weird blending of two different stories into something that's supposed to make sense, but it really does not. Walter Botts is the real Uncle Sam. You can see him here, where he imitates his poster in an image of 1970 from David Driner. Botts was the model for the famous poster made by J.M. Flagg with the iconic I Want You statement. At the beginning, Flagg used his own face as Uncle Sam until he was asked to finalize it before World War II. He then decided to use Botts for his model of what we all recognize immediately as American. Botts was chosen as he had longer arms, longer nose, and bushier eyebrows. Okay, so they needed a model to do 3 days of sessions to turn this poster into the more well-known, recognized one that we see today, that was the World War II recruitment poster, which is this one. What is the difference? Why is a model needed to recreate this poster? The only difference I see is this red and blue trim, this border around the edge. That's the only difference. Okay, so this one supposedly has bushier eyebrows and a longer nose compared to the one, Really? I don't see it. I don't get it. Now, what I am suggesting is that maybe it's possible that there are 2 separate timelines where in one timeline, this poster was originated in World War I. In another timeline, it originated in before World War II, and the story of Walter Botts is correct for that timeline. And for the other timeline, Mr. Flagg was the creator and the model for that timeline. And now it's merged, so there has to be a story. Okay, he needed a model to update the poster for World War II, and that's how Walter Botts comes in. And we have this blended story now between 2 separate timelines. Now that's a theory. This is very fringe. Most people are not going to be on board with such an idea. However, I would like to tie this now into other Mandela effects. So here we see the Lion and the Lamb, Isaiah 11:6, where this individual drew in the margins of their Bible, the lion will lie down with the lamb, showing the lion and the lamb because Isaiah 11:6 once read that way. It used to say the lion will lie down with the lamb. That's why they drew this in their Bible at that address. And they were shocked. This individual who drew this picture was shocked to see that it now says the wolf shall dwell with the lamb instead of the lion will lie down with the lamb. Just like I think Walter, if he were alive today, would be shocked to look at this photo and see that the iconic poster that he posed for does not have stripes on the hat and was actually created during World War I. So that's my theory about the blended version of things. This applies to other subjects. I am just stunned looking at what is going on with ancient history. This is Peru. You can see this doorway, megalithic blockwork, seamless mortarless joints. It merges, it blends into this more primitive, cobbled stonework where it appears that they're either using mortar or very primitive looking stones. And then we have these doorways. What is going on? And you see the wall behind it, it's all this primitive stuff. And supposedly, this was all made by the Inca. So the Inca were making this precision, megalithic stonework, seamless, mortarless joints out of much harder stone. And they were also putting up walls like this, much more primitive, like integrated together into the same structure. Now, other people are pointing out that, oh, well, they think that the Inca did not build all this. The Inca came here and stumbled on this even older structures that were there and decided to build on top of it. It's still, that narrative still doesn't make sense, because why wouldn't they then use the material that was left over and integrate it? You would expect to see some of these larger blocks perhaps integrated into these walls. Your guess is as good as mine. I am trying to make sense of it, because you can see this primitive stonework is embedded in with the more advanced stuff. This is so weird. Now, I'm going to move on to some other examples. This is what I remember Machu Picchu in Peru to look like. This kind of stonework It looks like something that people at that time period, given the skills and technology that they had, could, with the labor put into it, produce structures like this. Sure, that's not beyond the scale of scope and reason that we would imagine. And that's what I remember. I remember watching documentaries about Machu Picchu. They also highlighted this location as the only remaining Inca settlement that was largely intact. Why? Because structures like this were easily dismantled by the Spanish, and the material was repurposed into their own constructions. There was nothing left to find of the Inca. Now that story has completely changed, so much so that even Machu Picchu, the same structures, that these are made by the Inca, and supposedly so are these in Machu Picchu. Does that make sense to you? Look at the size of these blocks. Look how they are constructed. Look how the joints are mortarless. The seams are tightly fitted together. But once you get up higher, it looks like they started to forget how to make such precision stonework that they began with at the bottom. This looks so weird. It looks so much more primitive compared to what they started the structure with. Now, others might say like, oh, okay, well, this is proof of a previous civilization, and the Inca, as we know them, came and stumbled upon it and completed the structure with their own building materials and building style. And I don't know if I quite buy that. Yeah, this is really fringe to suggest this, that we might actually be looking at two parallel timelines merged together in this photo. One where the Inca built structures like this. That's what Machu Picchu looked like, all of their structures. And another one where they built Machu Picchu and all of their structures were made of this type of, with this type of precision and these megalithic blocks and this material. And now, somehow, they are merged and superimposed on top of each other. I just don't know how to describe this. Either way, look at this. How can your mind not be blown by what you are looking at? How do you cut and move stones this size? This is insane. Now, this is saying, like, this is the narrative that we read about today. Machu Picchu was built by the Inca. They did both of these construction techniques together. That they were responsible for the megalithic work at the bottom, at the base, and this primitive stuff that we see cobbled on top of it. So, this is Machu Picchu. They made walls like this, and they made walls like this. Seamless, mortarless, tightly fitted, curved. These nubs sticking out of them. And they also made this, just primitive looking, cobbled together. Stonework. That's what I'm familiar with. That's what it looked like once before. The entire site looked like this. And it was the best preserved, only remaining structures of the Inca that they had in the timeline that I remember. Now, we have this new narrative. Oh no, they were far more advanced. They had megalithic stonework, skill and precision that we cannot match today. And it's all over the place. But yet it's blended and merged together with this kind of stuff. I just wish someone could get their story straight on this, because this wasn't done by the same people. If you want to look back and wind the clocks back in a linear fashion, how does this work? These joints almost look like they have mortar in them, but yet the walls just on the building next to them, megalithic, look like they're stacked like these squishy marshmallows to fit so perfectly together. And then the next course above this megalithic stuff is so much more primitive. So did the Inca stumble on these structures and just start building on top? Were they just left incomplete? Did some tragic event, some cataclysm occur, and the Inca then stumbled on this settlement after this, the destruction of the original inhabitants occurred, and then just decided to build on top of it? And they seem to they completed the structure with the same blueprints, basically, as the original creators. Please, somebody, give me some explanations. Look at this primitive stuff, and look at this. I mean, we can't recreate this kind of thing today, and look at that. It's like a Frankenstein hybrid mashup of these two different building styles together. And I'm tying this together with my story of Walter Botts and Betsy Ross and Isaiah 11:6 and a lot of other Mandela effects, where we see multiple versions of history, of reality, blended together at the same time. I don't know how else to describe this. Yes, this is fringe. This is very fringe. This is for all the kooks and freaks out there on the internet to listen to this kind of ranting and raving that I am talking about here. Moving on to this structure called the Archbishop's Palace in Cusco, Peru. Now, I want to highlight that it is said this entire structure was constructed by the Inca. Just look at that. What are we even looking at? This is one Inca wall. This is how they built walls back then? How? Why? You'd start with something more primitive, put this advanced layer on top, and cobble around it with some more primitive stuff, and then some advanced stuff? Or did they meticulously piece back this wall that had been broken, putting the pieces, the megalithic pieces, back in, and putting their own construction around it because they stumbled on this settlement at a later time period? I just don't know how to describe what we're looking at here. Was this a broken section and then the primitive Inca came and filled it in with this material? If that's the case, you shouldn't see any of the advanced stuff on top of primitive stuff so blatantly, but we will shortly. Some of these doorways, you can see 2 or 3, even several different building designs mixed together. All right, just try and wrap your head around what you're looking at here. This is Cusco, Peru. Look at the base of this wall. It does not look to be the same builders who put whatever this layer is on top of it. Megalithic, seamless, mortarless joints. They look like they were sculpting the stones out of in a softened fashion. And then you have this on top, which was also supposedly built by the Inca. These are very impressive. They're also mortarless, seamless, very tightly fitted joints. And the stone is very different. This is so weird. What's the explanation for this? Oh, it was all built by the Inca. That's a hard pill to swallow there. Very, very hard. And now we have the modern Spanish and today's modern building construction materials on top of all that. So building on the right, built by the Inca. Building on the left, also built by the Inca. Material, the structure, this part of the structure on top, also built by the Inca. They look so different. You can see the picture of Walter Botts wearing a striped hat, and the hat behind him of the photo of the poster does not have stripes. Those are two different versions of reality together in the same picture. Could it be possible that we are also looking at the same principle, the same kind of thing in this photo? Multiple versions of reality together at the same time in the same picture. I'm asking questions here because this is crazy. I really need to do another video just on ancient history and how it is being altered from my perspective anyway. And not everyone's going to agree with this. I get that. Some people are going to watch this and be like, well, that was a waste of 15 minutes. But other people might find this intriguing. Other people might want to contribute to a conversation here in the comments and let me know what they think is going on. What are we looking at? Look at this. The people who built this section had the same building technique and technology to be able to fit these stones together so perfectly, but yet they use such different material. You know this would have had to have been done at different time periods, but why start with such gigantic blocks and then use so much smaller blocks? It really seems like the people who built each of these 3 layers, from the base to the midsection to the upper portions, were 3 very different groups of people. Very, very strange. But according to archaeologists, this was all built by the Inca. And some of these walls, like I showed before, it looks like they start off, pretty advanced, and then the stonework gets more crude. You can see more gaps in it. This wasn't built by constructed by the same people. The people who finished it weren't the people who started it, but yet they completed the design perfectly. And if this was somehow deconstructed or destroyed by some cataclysm, why wouldn't you see more of the strewn material around, in other structures? The material that was removed from a destructive event, wouldn't you see it repurposed and kind of cobbled together into other structures? You don't really see that so much. And then you see this, stuff like this, 50-ton megalithic blocks with these weird nubs sticking out of them. And this almost seems like another group of people with yet another technology building this type of wall construction. And why is there a primitive layer underneath this gigantic slab? Unless someone, came along later and decided to reconstruct some of it by, putting a foundation of smaller stones and putting this on top. But it looks weird. This looks very weird. I've never seen this kind of structure before in South America before in my entire life until the Mandela Effect. And I did point this out in one of my older videos about what I call Mandela affected history, where I have been watching this slowly become phased into the narrative, into reality, where I would watch documentaries and they'd highlight, Inca construction, and then there would be these anomalies, strange megalithic stones that they didn't know who created, but they were very few by comparison. But now, as years have gone by, more and more of these structures are popping up, like now, so much so that they are integrated into the modern landscape, the structure of the city of Cusco. You don't need to go to Machu Picchu to see ancient Inca ruins. You can just walk down the street of Cusco and see megalithic Inca stonework built into the, the coffee shop or the guest house that you're staying in. This is crazy. So I'd like some feedback on this. What were these people doing? What do you think about this idea of blended versions of history together at the same time? Supposedly all built by the Inca. There was nobody else around to make these structures, according to the historical narrative that we have today. So, yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments. I really appreciate it. Sometimes it does kind of feel like I'm just shouting into the void here, and I don't get a whole lot of feedback. So I really do appreciate it if even if you want to write down something and cheer me out for being crazy, go ahead and do that too. I appreciate all the feedback I can get, and likes and subscribes and all that kind of stuff really help out too. So thanks a lot. I'll talk to you again next time.